General Assembly is a global network of campuses that offers courses in technology, business, and design. Our core products are 10 to 12-week courses that teach practical skills. So Intro to Rails, user experience design, front-end web development. Now we're going to have some female engineers come up and talk to you a little bit about their experiences. So Esther, Miriam, and Melissa. And while they're coming up here, how do you guys like the video? Anyone have any comments specifically about it? It's touching, right? Inspiring. Very good, yes. Very inspiring. They did a great job. They obviously got the best from all the best companies. So really good. Okay, cool. Well, I guess if you guys want to introduce yourselves a little bit and tell us a little bit about yourselves. If you guys want to use the mic, you can.
I don't know if it's on.
Yep.
Okay. I'm Esther. I'm a software developer. Currently I work at cars.com. We have a small office right across the street, actually. So I work on building the website back end and front end. I'm part of a team of about 12 developers. Right now I'm the only woman on the team. We did hire someone who starts in a couple weeks who is another woman, so that'll be nice, finally. Yeah, primarily during the day I work on the Python and JavaScript programming languages for PHP.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
First of all, that video was awesome. And I was so happy to be here to see it because they were talking about everything I go through as a female developer. So I'm Melissa Bennett. I work for Using, senior software engineer. I've been doing this for 6.5 years about. I program in a couple different languages, C#, Python, Java, Objective-C, JavaScript, and a few frameworks. But yeah, so I'm so happy to be here. I guess we're going to be answering questions and so forth, so feel free to ask me anything. I'm Jamaican, first of all, and so my introduction to computer science was not as glamorous as anything I've heard. At my first time I heard about programming, I actually know what it was when I got to college. In high school, I did courses, and the Jamaican education system is very structured. And so the classes I excelled at were math and a little bit of physics. And computer science in Jamaican high school was Excel and Microsoft Access and Microsoft Word. That was computer science. And so I did it, and I was awesome at it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to college and I'm going to do computer science. Rude awakening. So when I graduated, I was like one of maybe 3 females in that class, and I just continued from there.
Good evening. I'm pretty loud, so I think I can do that. My name is Miriam Avalos. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at the District Attorney's Office in San Bernardino County. I've been there about 2 years now, and prior to that I worked at the Facilities Division as the Deputy Director. So I spent most of my time in IT in the public sector, so that's very different from a lot of folks that work in the private sector. And I was a graduate student in non-engineering, which was at MIT, and this was an undergrad. And and I did my undergrad at Berkeley in sociology, and then I went to MIT in urban planning. And so when I was a graduate student, I did a lot of work in large-scale databases and did a lot of that work. And then I sort of became a subject matter expert in large-scale urban development projects for a couple of years, and then I was hired on by a good friend of mine who was the CIO to be a subject matter expert to get a team of developers to build an application that was going to store the data for a lot of large-scale development. We were going to make 150 new schools in 10 years as part of the bond project for the school district, and we're going to change the face of LA. And we did, And every time I drive around in LA, I'm like, yeah, we helped build that school. So then after that project was over, I decided that I wanted to actually have some more formal training. So I went over to I did a year program at the Carnegie Mellon CIO Institute. So where I was in a cohort of about, I think it was 25 of us, and there were 2 women. The other woman was one of the deputy directors in the Department of Homeland Security, and myself. So it was actually really nice to be in there with her, and I never thought in my professional life I'd actually ever have to talk to her or anything. But a couple of months ago, we had an incident in San Bernardino County, of all places, where we had that incident in that there was an ex-LAPD officer who was out in the San Bernardino Mountains, and one of our PIOs, a public information officer, sent out a tweet regarding the incident, and we became the subject of the ire of Anonymous. And so at that point, that's when I called my friend from DHS, and I'm like, hey, listen, I know we're out in San Bernardino County, but I need a little bit of cover. Let's just make sure that this is legit. And so I've spent some time, doing a lot of work with the public sector, and like many of you in this room, I find myself to be the only woman in the room, and that's all sometimes inspiring and sometimes intimidating, and so I actually went with my 14-year-old daughter to the Stanford C++ conference, and I saw a sparkle in her eyes, and she's like, yes, this is what I want to do, and I'm really good at it. And so I thought that was the entire conference was just great, and it was inspiring, and I'm just really excited to be here tonight. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess, what do you think are the greatest barriers for women to enter the tech world?
In my opinion, the greatest barriers that I have experienced, it's intimidating, first of all. It's mostly men, and it requires this kind of assertiveness and confidence. That's like the biggest part of it. You're not confident, you're not assertive, you might get stepped on, because it's really, really aggressive. Guys, with everything, they're very competitive, they're very aggressive, and sometimes if you don't assert yourself, then you kind of get stepped on or swept aside. So I think that has been the most intimidating factor. Like, women a lot of women they just don't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with the egos, first of all, and they don't want to deal with having to put on this front every day, to show that I am, just as good as you are, and, so they just don't want to deal with that. So to me, that's my opinion of what I see most women I've spoken to, because my best friend, she did computer science, and she was way more brilliant than I was, I believe. She had almost a 4.0 GPA, and now she's doing marketing. She just doesn't want to do it. And I don't know, I just think the main thing I've heard is that, they don't want to deal with the ego. They don't want to deal with having to front every day. They don't want to deal with the aggression, and that's my experience.
Anyone else?
Sure. So I think I agree with you. A lot of it is self-confidence. But it's also not realizing the strengths that women bring. I have the good fortune of having developers who are women, and I see the strengths they bring to the table. One of those is the ability to really sit down and take a look at the requirements and speak to the client or the person who's going to use the application, and having those anthropological kind of type of skills to say, okay, what is it that you really think you need, and let's take you from the beginning to the end of the life cycle of a project, and it's almost like women are really good at listening, and so they're really good at understanding what it is that the vision and delivering the end product to the users. I know that several of the female developers that I have had on my staff have had the ability to just sit down, listen to the customer, really thoroughly understand what it is that they need, and develop a product that's easy to use and that it's less intimidating. So one of the greatest obstacles, I think, for women is that inability to realize that we are actually, I think we're made for this particular field, and much better than men who sit down and say, no, I really know what you really need, and let me tell you how it's going to work. And it's like, at the end of the day, you develop a product that's, you just have that intimidation factor, and so, the user interface is just not the way it's supposed to be because it was developed the way they wanted it.
Yeah, I think there's a big cultural barrier, even starting with school. I went to college at UC Berkeley as well for my undergrad, and it didn't even occur to me to even try majoring in the EATS program, the electrical engineering and computer science programs there, because I lived on a co-ed floor in a co-ed dorm, and a lot of the guys on the floor who were six majors, they would sort of complain in a very humble braggy way about how hard it was, how tough the work was, or whatever. And so, to me, it was just like, oh, that's totally not what I'm into at all. It just it wasn't until well after college, and I was learning how to build websites on my own and learning these things, just helping out a friend who wanted to build a website, and I realized that I really enjoyed it, and I was doing it as a side hobby, basically. And even through those years, it was like, oh, I could never do this for a living. And it's totally just, that perception of what an engineer is or a software engineer is, and how they should be and how they should act, it totally didn't jive with anything that I was attracted to about, programming and coding. So it was definitely a perception thing. But like you said, it's once you're actually in the field. I joined the profession about a year and a half ago as a full-time developer. And I realized that women do have a lot of advantages just from the way that we're socialized to be better coworkers as developers to people on the other side of the business, like product managers or quality assurance people, or even middle management VPs of product. I mean, we were sort of socialized to listen a little bit better, to be a little bit nicer, and be a little bit less, needing to throw down our egos or whatever. There's a big difference between what you learn in school versus working as a developer in the professional world. I think software development is a craft, and so the only way to get really good at it is to just keep doing it. It's not so much the book learning or going to classes. That's my impression anyway.
I totally agree with her. Computer science, if you're not willing to learn something new every day, then don't bother. If you're not willing to keep up with what's going on every second, technology is changing, then don't bother. Because that's what it's about. You have to keep learning every single day, every single week. You have to keep up with everything. And if it's not exciting to you, then don't do it. And I think that's why computer science majors or people who do computer science programming, they're really excited about it because they want to learn everything they can. It's like they're hungry for the information, and they want to learn everything they can every second it changes. And they want to learn a better way of doing things every day. And so, if you are not driven in that sense, then, don't bother.
What's a typical day look like for you guys? What do you guys do? Your typical Tuesday.
My typical Tuesday, I work for an agency, so there are always a billion things going on. Billion projects going on. So for me, my Tuesday would be refactoring code and fixing bugs and talking to project managers. And as a senior software engineer, I'm required to sit in design meetings and tell someone that, no, you can't design that. It's not going to work well when you build it. And so that's a typical Tuesday for me, but that's because I work for an agency and there's a lot of things going on at an agency. It's not a single product. So I'm required to be very flexible and adapt and do a lot of different things on a daily basis.
Mine is kind of similar. I don't work for an agency. I work for a company whose basically our only client is our product manager. Everything we do is sort of to build the site that they want to be built. My day is pretty similar. I go to work. I have a project to work on. Usually it lasts from anywhere from a week to a couple of months. So I'll either work on that, have a code review, where I look at other people's code and make comments on how, what needs to be done or what's good. Try to learn from what they've done, and then they can review my code and do the same thing. Talk to the product managers about requirements and There are more meetings than I ever want, always, but it's just like a company, I guess. Yeah, at our company, I'm very fortunate where everyone sort of shows up at 9 and everyone leaves at 6. I don't feel any pressure to like stay until 10 o'clock. It's not like the whole Facebook thing where you're living and coding through.
So in my typical day, I have a group of developers that on any given day we're working on at least 4 or 5 different business applications. We do a lot of custom build development for different types of attorneys that do different types of prosecutions. So we could be building different databases or applications or developing some sort of interface for some of our law enforcement partners. So since I've only been there a year and a half, we spent a lot of time creating new and developing new applications in order to bring the DA's office into a much more integrated law justice world. And so that's what I spend a lot of time doing code reviews, sitting down with developers, trying to get them to adapt to a sort of more rapid application development as opposed to a typical government waterfall. It's going to take 3 years development by the time you develop it. It's just useless. So a lot more agile development, a lot more quicker development and turnaround cycles. And so that's what trying to change the mindset of the developers that I have and hiring new people that have that ability to turn projects around much more quickly. And I think that's been the biggest, just in the last 7 or 8 years, that's been the biggest change in the IT world in the public sector is that because we've been experiencing a lot of budget shortfalls, we've had to be much more creative in the type of development that we do. We don't have those large commercial off-the-shelf software. We're just as IT directors across the board, I think we're becoming much more efficient and much more like the private sector in that we're taking a look at what's the best of breed and everything and then just adapting to that. So that's really been, in a typical day, it's a microcosm of that. I'm just trying to be a lot more fluid in the type of work that we're doing.
What if websites and apps were all developed by women, do you think they would be different from how they are today?
That's a tough one. But I once read somewhere, and I don't know how accurate this is, but the article was saying basically women are better at building something right the first time. I don't know. I read it somewhere. I don't know how true it is. But I was talking about that today, actually, in a meeting we had, where I'm like a crazy person. I have this big book on my desk, and I write down everything I'm going to do, like algorithms and everything. I draw it out, I sketch it out before I actually start coding. And then I write my unit test, then I write my code. And then I find that I do actually do it better the first time than before. So I don't know, maybe, I don't know if we do it better in terms of it would apps be better, but I don't know, it's an interesting concept to explore. Maybe we would.
You have to be nice to the men in the audience.
Oh, yeah, I fight with them every day, so it's so I don't know if it would actually be better if women, build apps or if they were responsible for it. But I know definitely it would probably bring maybe less bugs.
I generally think that they'd be a lot friendlier. I think the applications that the women that have, the developers that I've had that are women and taken brought applications to production, they typically tend to be a lot more user friendly. They just are. There's a lot more technology adoption by the user base in general. I mean, it's just something that happens just because they were built right the first time. They're a lot less intimidating to users that are like, yeah, this I can use this. I mean, you're talking about having people in a particular department use your application, not necessarily I built something because it's really nice and I built it. I want people to use it. I want people to give me feedback. and be able to make multiple iterations. I think in general, there's a lot of that happens, when they're able to customize whatever it is that they didn't right the first time and make it even better.
I guess just springboarding based on what you just said, thinking about it, like some more while you were talking, I would say women are like the iOS developers, so to speak, and men are like the Android developers. Because today I was talking with my husband. I was having this conversation with him in the car, and he's like, "I think Apple's going to be relevant in a couple of years soon." And I'm like, "Really? I don't think so, because Google or Android developers, they develop for developers. So developers are super excited about whatever Google releases, and they think it's awesome, but how much of the world's population or consumers are developers who actually consume the product?" And I think that's the biggest problem Google is having, as in they are having a hard time getting regular people excited about their product. So it just dies. As far as Apple, it's prettier, and that's all we care about. It's prettier, and it does what we want it to do, and that's all we care about. It's flashy, So I think that's how I would compare it. Women are the more Apple developers, so to speak, and then the things like Google, they have a more, what should I say, their approach to development is less user-friendly, like she was saying, I think, based on my experiences. Sometimes they get so excited and caught up in the technical aspect of things that they forget about what the user wants, and the experience that they're expecting, and like, can I pick up this app and understand right away what to do with it, or it has a bunch of cool features, but as a regular user, I don't know what, I don't know how to access, I don't know what to do with this, whereas with an iPhone, you pick it up and you can give it to a baby and they understand. That's what I think.
I had a couple points while we were talking, and I forgot most of it. No, but it was mostly in agreement because, I think women, I've been told this because I had to be convinced very hard to join the development team that I'm on now. But I've been told that women don't like to jump into things until they feel really comfortable that they can write really well. Whereas men will sort of, they'll be asked to do something they don't really know how to do, but they'll be like, sure, whatever, And so it sort of keeps women from trying new things, taking more risks. I think that's what I've been told, and that's something I have to work on. And maybe it's true for most women, where you feel like you have to really develop the skill set before you can feel comfortable jumping in. And so with that, I think maybe there are apps being built now that could be built now, but people don't feel confident enough in themselves so they can start trying because they're afraid of failure or they're just not really. What is that like? You were saying? Yeah, just wanting to do it right the first time and being afraid that they can't, so they don't even start get into that. So that might be maybe keeping people from doing things that they could be doing. So another point was just that I think I read in some article that startups where that are led primarily by women tend to be more successful, and maybe that's again because they only jumped in when they knew that they were confident that they could succeed. But I think maybe having more women in places of management in higher levels might also be something that could benefit everybody in the long term. I forgot that.
And for those of us who want to learn how to code, what do you recommend? Do you recommend online resources, offline? What programming language to start with? How do you jump in for those of us who want to?
It's funny because the way I got started was really rough. Like I said, after college, I still was not awesome at development, And so I came to the U.S. 6.5 years ago. I came here for actually an IT job, and my first job was this super hard project. I had no idea how to develop WSDL services. I'm sure that sounds weird to a lot of you. I had no idea, and I had to just learn on the spot, honestly. It was a lot of online resources and just sleepless nights, and it was just rough. But for any of you who, didn't have to do what I did, I would say online resources, there are tons of them out there now. You have Coursera, Stanford actually released free videos on YouTube. They have computer science. They have, like, there's so many resources out there now that you can access. So I think online resource and actually finding someone who you trust and think will offer you good advice. That's good. Am I doing this the right way? Because I think anyone can go learn to code, but doing it the right way is always key. I mean, you don't want to write shitty code. Sorry. But yeah, if you can find someone who, you trust and has an established reputation for writing good code and they can offer you good advice, then I think that's the best resource you can find. So online resources and someone to ask questions. I think that's all you need.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Having a good mentor it makes such a difference. You learn so much, even just from a coder, if you're working on a project with somebody who really knows like the best practices, who's had enough experience to know what works and what doesn't work. You can learn so much just from that. And when I learned, I was largely self-taught, and I learned mostly from online resources. I read some books that were available for free online, so that was very helpful. Actually working on a project is probably the best way to get better.
Yeah, so I think from my personal experience, I always thought this is just, having gone in, this is something I'm never going to master, and I kept saying to that. And I think after 10 years and 40 or 50 applications that we developed, I had the good fortune of having these amazing developers that were literally artists at what they wrote, and we'd sit down and we'd go through code review, and after doing this for 2-3 years, I started realizing I understand this and I could do this, and just iteration, just writing pieces and chunks, and then after a while beginning to really write a lot more. I just felt like you develop confidence. That's for me, it was just practice. It was just sitting down and getting editing pieces of code, and it's like, okay, well, this is broken. How do we fix it? And then after a while, it just became a personal thing. It's like, look, I want to become a CIO, CTO, and I don't want to be an astronaut. I actually want to tell people. I want to sit down and say, okay, you know what, that is wrong. And so it's that whole woman thing. You just got to have done everything. And so at least know what was right and wrong. So I felt like I needed to spend the time and learn as many different languages as I could. And so, times it's like I'll go back and I'm like, okay, I have to practice it. Nowadays I'm so far removed from it, but I'm like, okay, now I have to go back and practice. Now that I have a 14-year-old who's about to take AP Computer Science, I'm like, yes. I'm actually going to sit down and go through it again.
It's just like math, I would say. You have to practice. If you don't practice, then you won't get better at it. So the more things you can build, the more things you can get your hand on, think of ideas. My husband, he's always good at keeping me, because I do so many different programming languages that I'm probably not working on that particular project at work where, I'm working on a Java project, but I still want to stay up to date with Objective-C. He comes up with these ideas to play soccer, and he comes with these ideas to build stuff and build apps, and, that keeps me fresh. So just little things, like anything you think of and you want to build a little app, a little whatever, anything, just you start there, just build it, start somewhere, and you'll get there. And there are a lot of online resources that can help you get there. The more you practice, like you said, the better.
Well, I have time for more questions, but I want to open it up to you guys to make sure. Yeah, I figured. Okay. Sure, go ahead.
So my question is, as you said, there are new things coming out all the time. How do you keep on top of the new developments? Are there websites that you subscribe to? Where do you go?
I subscribe to Reddit. It provides it's just a dump of everything you need in terms of, you can subscribe to individual feeds, you can subscribe to TechCrunch or, what's it called, Gizmodo? You have so many, you have Killer Code or something like that, but Reddit kind of pulls in every single thing that you need to know. So Reddit is one of them, and having friends that code actually helps, because they're constantly blabbering about this new this and this new that, and as well as I try to go to meetups. I haven't been going in a while, but I try to go to meetups, and people come there with the newest thing that they worked on, and you always learn something new. someone is always using new technology that you've never heard of, and that inquisitiveness to ask, like, what is this? What did you use to build this? And more than likely, they'll always want to answer you. They always want to tell you what they use, because everyone likes to show off technology that they know, and how they did this, and it's so cool. So, just being really inquisitive is one of the, meetups. I use Reddit and just try to find people who actually do coding. And if you hang around them, you'll always hear new things. You'll always hear what's going on. You've never read about it. Events that's going on currently, like Google I/O, I have it on my monitor at work, one monitor here, and I'm working over here, and a headphone in my ears, and so I'm listening to it, and I'm coding. And then WWDC, which is Apple Conference, going. I can't wait, I'm so excited. So they always stream those things live. You can always listen in, and whether you're paying attention fully or not. Sometimes it's always good to know what conferences are going on, especially the big ones, and just listen. And you always hear something new in terms of technology. So
The only thing I would add is I use Hacker News to follow that stuff. The aggregators are really, really good for finding the useful stuff, because there's so much information out there. So you can subscribe to 90 million blogs, or you could just go to Hacker News, like the coolest or whatever, and you'll see all the stuff that comes up.
Yeah, for us, once I go to a lot of conferences, and I'm constantly, and I have the good fortune of folks coming to us to ace other stuff, or just to do case studies, and so a lot of networking, a lot of talking to folks. But yeah, a lot of the conferences, even some of the developer conferences, those are always fun.
So, since there are quite a few men in this audience, lots are coming, what advice, and this is something Sheryl Sandberg kind of touched in her book, Lean In, but what advice do you have for men on how to encourage you guys, or encourage us in this field, and how to be good mentors, and how to be approachable and stuff?
Kill the ego. I have experienced a lot of really awesome guys, guys I've worked with for years and years, and they've been awesome. But I guess that's something that's common among a lot of men, the ego and stuff, and just being willing to teach. I think that's the biggest thing. I found being willing to teach what you know, and being willing to learn as well. So I think it goes both ways. While teaching, you always learn, and I just think that men just need to be willing to teach, and just be willing to listen and be patient with, because I guess we do tend to get more frustrated sometimes with the big problems. Just be patient, a little bit patient with us, be willing to teach, be willing to learn, and listen. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to work with a team of really great people, and a couple of the people I've worked under have been really great mentors. And I think one thing that they helped me a lot with was just pushing me to speak up more and be more assertive. They would pull me aside and they would be like, you need to speak up more, you need to talk more. Why don't you do that? So they would call me on me being too timid, or too not showing confidence. And so that's definitely changed the way I work. So just noticing things that maybe could help your women coworkers be better at, and just sort of gently calling them out on it, and also very helpful.
So from I'm in a different perspective in that I manage a bunch of men primarily my entire life. I think I've managed 3 or 4 women. I'm conscious of that all the time, that and I'm a woman, and that they're going to take direction from me. And so, in some ways, I kind of nurture that ego a lot. So it's this is just really great. How do you think do it? But in the process, I'm also conscious of the fact that, one day they're going to leave and they're going to become CIOs, and they're also going to need to understand the contributions that we make. So I'm always saying, wow, I think as a woman, I see things differently. So it's a lot of being conscious of your language, and also in my perspective, because I'm trying to develop you're going to leave my organization, you're going to become a CIO, but I also want you to hire women, because eventually my daughters are going to come up in the world. I have 3 of them, and I want you to hire them. and I want you to be a part of that. So, I mean, obviously the men in the room are sort of, they've been converted. I mean, we're preaching the converted, but there's a lot of out there that they're not conscious of the fact that the discourse changes when we're in the room. It does. It's a matter of fact. It's like, when, you know, when I'm in a conversation, especially in law enforcement, and I'm like the only woman in technology in law enforcement, and, you know, I walk in and it's like, where did you come from? And then, you know, obviously, and sometimes as women, we just have to prove ourselves. I mean, I walk in and it's like, okay, you know what? Yes, I'll drop all, you know, my credentials. And then it's like, oh, okay, you must be smart. And I say, yeah, you know, not necessarily, but, you know, I work hard. But, you know, at least for 5 minutes, you'll listen to me because by then I'll, like, capture your attention and then you'll actually realize that I have something to contribute. So, you know, so it's not necessarily the men in this room, but it's about the women and how the discourse that we use. It's about like, okay, you know what? I'm bringing this perspective. I'm bringing this perspective because I'm a woman and this is what I'm contributing. So.
All the way in the back.
You mentioned by several panelists today that you often had to play up your aggressiveness and ego in order to fit in with men and perhaps be perceived as credible in this industry. I'm curious too whether you had to actually downplay your femininity in order to be perceived or feel like you're credible as well.
In my case, I'm a firm believer in just being myself at all times because that's what I'm most comfortable. And I'm a very, very feminine girl, super feminine. And it was really hard for me in this industry because I was judged for it and everything. So no, I never at any time played on my femininity. I always try to have a smart response to everything. I try to be really confident. I try to assert myself. And those are the things I work on instead of trying to play down how feminine I was. So, you know, if I had something to say, I said it. I was once told that I should be more louder, you know, by a manager. He was like, yeah, you should be more louder. I was like, well, being louder does not necessarily make you the most smartest person in the room. So I don't know if you appreciated me saying that, but it's like, I don't think being loud is necessarily being smart. So if I have something smart to say, and if I can help someone solve a problem, then I'll open up my mouth and I'll say it. I'm very blunt. I'll always be honest. And, you know, so I do believe that I work on those qualities. I work on trying to elevate those instead of trying to play down how feminine I am. So, does that answer your question? Feel free to.
Okay, we'll take 2 more questions. Yes.
I just wanted to mention because Miriam talked a lot about it, but it never was called by name. Because it seems like, well, I'm guilty myself. I've been 20 years in industry. Women in development and QA. There was a big piece missing, and I just wanted you to call them by name. Women in system analysis who can actually talk to clients, and in a time and age of flat preparations, many times it's tempting to let clients talk to developers, and these guys can talk. So just as a guidance, tell a little bit about the women in system analysis.
Yeah.
System analysis.
So I mean, see, in the public sector, you don't have if you're in a small organization, you really have the programmers having multiple hats in that they're taking a look at a business problem. You have a process problem. And women are really good at understanding the problem. So a typical, problem is you have a business unit, and I'll give an example of my previous organization. We had an organization that was in the business of building schools, and you had a program that was part of the labor compliance, and so their job is basically to go out and to make sure that all the contractors were complying to the labor standards of the state of California and making sure that they had prevailing wage. And so the developer, the actual programmer, would sit with the business analysis and the QA people, and sometimes it's the same person. They were doing all different things, and they were the women, and they were able to sit down, understand what the application needed to look like, take a look at all the requirements, someone would sit down and write the requirements, and then usually the business analysis person would then turn around and work hand in hand with the developer. And sometimes they were the ones that were doing a lot of the interface work. And so it really was the ability for the women in that room to be able to do the analysis, do the process flows, come up with different changes and how things were going to be different. One of the hardest things in the public sector is changing mindsets. These are people that have spent 20 years doing the same thing in Excel. You want them to use a browser and be able to input the information, and they don't know where it's going to go, and they're not going to have the control. And so you have someone who's mid-career in their 50s and who's used to something, and then you have to come in and not only develop a product, make sure that they're using it, make sure that they're using it correctly, and be able to tweak it. So those are the type of things that the developers that I saw that the women contributed greatly to. If I could, I would have hired many more, because they really did have the skill sets to be able to develop products like that were able to be able to be used and used effectively. I had the good fortune of doing a lot of open source work in the public sector back when we first started, and just because we were such a lean organization, and we took TCL and ACS and a lot of different type of software, and so it was just really nice to develop our own custom development, and that's the only thing I've ever known in the public sector. So I've been sort of fortunate, and that a lot of other CIOs and developers and application developers really, they say they're developers, but they're really, they're truthfully, PeopleSoft and a lot of other stuff. But it's like when you actually develop an application from scratch using, just hardcore programming language, that's a lot different. I've been fortunate in that I've had teams of developers who've done that, and they've been very balanced in their gender, and I see the contributions that the women have made, that have really been, have contributed to the success of the program, and to my success, because it's like, hey, I'm building great applications, I do a great job, and therefore the organization funds me.
All right, one last question. Oh, yeah.
How do you think that, what you're doing, relates more broadly to contemporary feminism? Did I just stump you?
That's a really interesting question. It's kind of weird because I was a humanities major in college, and I remember having to take as a requirement some sort of it's like a feminist literature class or something. Yeah, I don't know. And it was like a French feminism thing. So they talked about all the movements, the various theories or whatever that they had, and I thought it was very interesting. Things like power balances and difference, the concept of difference between the genders or whatever. And it was weird because I don't know how many you guys know the events, but there was this recent thing at a developer conference called PyCon, which is for Python developers, and it sort of blew up on the internet. It's kind of weird. But the whole discussion of that led to these people thinking about things, and I was like, you guys need to read these old people from the 19th century. They went through exactly the same thing. Not the 19th, the 20th century. They went through the exact same thing, and you guys are just reliving the waves, but if you just read this stuff, you might be able to think about it in a different way. It's sort of a little more efficient. I don't know.
Can I respond to that as well? Sorry, that's just a very interesting point, because the biggest thing that struck me, I'm Rachel, and I'm on medical leave right now, but I've worked at Microsoft for 2 years. And the biggest thing that struck me about the video was the point that women are 60% of college graduates, yet they're only 20% of computer science, and couldn't we greatly increase the pool of computer scientists if we could draw women there? That was the most powerful argument that I've heard for getting women into computer science to date, because my impression, having attended, some of these events, has been I have to be a feminist to show up to them. It has to be all about women are being oppressed, or there's no entry, or what? And it's like, no, I don't believe that. I can stand up for myself, I can assert myself, I can do anything I want to. So yeah, I just think it's an important point to make that there are so many technology jobs, and we need qualified engineers. I can't tell you how many interviews we go through to find one engineer who's good. You know, and the people who don't have an ego, who learn, who read requirements, who program well, who write their unit tests, those are the people we hire, male or female. I want them. And so I don't know if that ties in much to that question, but I just wanted to emphasize that because that was really potent for me. I was like, wow, I can get behind this movement if it's about we need more excellent engineers.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Today, I was talking to my coworker, another female, by the way, and she was like, "Oh, you're attending the conference. Don't let everyone think you're a feminist or whatever." And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I totally don't believe in that stuff. If you want to do something, you do it." And I don't believe in calling yourself, seeing yourself as a victim all the time. Like, oh my God, they just don't like me because I'm a woman and whatever, they just judge me. Don't victimize yourself. That's like the key rule. No one's standing in your way. You have a brain just like everyone else. You can learn this stuff. You can do it. You just need to assert yourself. You don't need to change who you are at all. You just need to be smart. And you need to prove that you're smart. And you always need to prove yourself every single day. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing in life is fair. And we're not saying that there aren't cases or instances in which you're judged harsher because you're a female, but if you're willing to assert yourself and prove yourself that you are right for this job, then you can get it. You can do it. You can do whatever you like. So I totally agree.
And you can also interview until you find that company
exactly that appreciates
you.
you. Right.
I've interviewed with a whole bunch of large egos, and I'm
Right.
going, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to respond to the point about feminism. I strongly consider myself a feminist, and to me, all that means is that I believe that every single person is equal, and I believe that women are people. I don't think that it means the aircraft. I think they're very schools of feminism. I don't think that it means anything more than that.
Yeah, I think that's the point is, it's hard to take so long to get to that point, but wouldn't it be nice to be able to think of yourself as a developer and engineer and not be a woman engineer, like to not have to worry about being a representative of a gender. Think about it, even.
Yeah, I mean,
yourself in a box.
I think the greatest part, I think that was what's exciting about it. When we were at T++, I saw that, wow, 10 years from now, I'm going to be at, a public sector CIO conference for Microsoft in Southern California. There's going to be a lot more women in the restroom. It's just I see it. I mean, really, it's like the only place in the world that you can be in there, you're like all alone. And it's like, okay. There's just something wrong with this picture. But yeah, I just sort of feel like, I arrived, at this place sort of, and not like, I didn't have a software, I'm not an electrical engineer, I didn't do that at MIT, and I always felt that way at MIT. But it's that movements like T++, all the women in this room, they're all role models, and you guys are all changing the discourse, and you're all changing the ability to the perception of what it is to be a female engineer and what it is to be in technology. And so that's just very different from when I was growing up and there was a guy in the basement with no social skills and black screen. And somewhere or another, I've group of male engineers for a long time, and when we hired our first female, it was like, okay guys, y'all can't just run around in your t-shirts anymore and just hang out and do all this stuff. And, we've got to change the stuff. Things need to change a little bit. And so having once more women started coming into our organization, I felt like the rest of the organization saw us and was able to communicate with us a lot better. And so those are the things that are tangible things that women contribute. And primarily because we began to have conversations with the rest of the organization, and people began to engage themselves in what we were doing and saying, hey, those IT guys, they're listening to what we have to say, and they're delivering products that we're using. And so we're going to engage them more in the discussion, and we're going to engage them more in the strategic direction of the organization. And so that's how things changed. And so those are the type of things that I see, having, whatever percentage of women engineers that's going to happen, and we're eventually going to get to a place where more women in the restrooms, and you're going to have really interesting discussions about what the future of IT and the public sector is going to look like.
Well, thanks so much for coming